So this basically means if you have an unempty compact set, then the boundary is empty. But if you assume that you have an unempty compact convex set, then you can give a geometrical proof. What does it mean? Now suppose that you have an unempty compact convex set, and then because it is non-empty, there is a point x. Then you take any line passing through that, straight line passing through that. So the straight line is, it is an unbounded this thing. So if you take the intersection of L, so if you call that straight line L, then L intersection S will just be, because it is a compact convex set, L intersection S will be like one interval kind of a object, closed interval kind of a object. So that will give you one boundary point. If you go to the end point, that will be a boundary point. So for example, if you are imagining a closed solid ball, then it will give you this end point, this one. That's a boundary point. Anyway, so a non-empty compact convex set in Rn has a vertex that is 5.2. Well, this one is somewhat easy to prove. Like for dimension 1 non-empty compact convex subset of R are precisely the intervals, closed intervals. So that has a vertex, a closed non-trivial interval. If you have, then it will have two vertices, that is the two endpoints. So assume, so how do you do that? Now, by 5.1, you have a non-empty compact set. By 5.1, you have a boundary point x. Then what you do, you take a supporting hyperplane that we have just in the previous class we have proved, like at any boundary point you will get a supporting hyperplane h containing that boundary point. So in that case, so this is your set S, this is this. Then you consider H intersection S. Now if you consider H intersection S, remember H is also convex, S is convex, intersection is convex, S is closed, H is also closed, so intersection is closed. And since S is compact, that is bounded, this intersection will also be non-empty because it contains X, compact and convex. This set. But the structure is in Rn-1. It will be an n-1 dimensional structure. You can view this inside one n-1 dimensional structure. Okay, and therefore now you can apply induction hypothesis to tell that this set, this H intersection S, will have a vertex. So by induction, apply induction to get that has a vertex. But then you also have proved that a vertex of H intersection S is also a vertex of S. So this, that is also a vertex of S. Okay, so that's how you get it. So by induction. Next comes the Crane-Millman theorem. It's an old one. What we are using is the Rn version. Okay. So what it says that if you have a set E, so suppose that you have a compact convex, non-empty compact convex set S, and E is your set of vertices of S. Then it says that actually S is equal to the convex hull of E. One side is easy because if as E is a subset of S, so the convex combinations of E will be inside S. will be inside S because S is convex. That part is easy. Conversely, if you take conversely you take X in S and you want to show that X is a convex combination of elements of E. That's what you want to show. Well, first assume X is a boundary point. Now, if X is a boundary point, you do the same trick. Take the hyperplane, supporting hyperplane passing through X. Okay, take one of the supporting hyperplanes. Okay, passing through X, and then consider H intersection S. Now, what you are seeing? Now you are seeing this set is non-empty, compact, convex. Okay, non-empty, compact, and convex, and therefore and it contains X. It also contains X. Okay, X belongs here. X contains X is inside here. Okay, and it is a structure in lesser dimension. So now you can apply induction to tell that X is a convex combination of the vertices of H intersection S. But then vertices of H intersection S are vertices of S only. So therefore, it will follow that X belongs to the convex hull of E. Okay, so that is the case when X is in the boundary. Now, what happens if X is in the boundary? Now, if X is not in the boundary, what happens when X is not in the boundary? If X is a point, it is not in the boundary, then it is in the interior. So what you are having, now you are having S somewhere like this. X is somewhere in the interior. So you have a small ball passing through it. Not passing through, containing it. Very, very small ball containing it. Now you take a line passing through that, as you are seeing. And with the argument that we earlier had, the line intersection S will be a non-trivial closed interval. Okay, it will be a non-trivial closed line segment, and therefore you are going to get two endpoints, call A and B, two endpoints of which X is a convex combination. Now at A, applying the first case, A will be a convex combination of some vertices of S. Similarly, B will also be a convex combination of some vertices of S because both A, B are in the boundary. And therefore, X being a convex combination of both A and B, X will also be a convex combination of vertices of S. So that is Krein-Milman theorem. So which says that a non-empty compact convex subset of Rn is the convex hull of its vertices. So that means you can generate the whole set as soon as you find the vertices. Okay, and then some exercises are there. You can do that. Let's see. And that is fine. Okay, we'll talk about polytopes and polyhedrons. I have already given the definition earlier, I believe. And why do I need them? Because the feasible set for the LPP, the standard LPP, SLPP, will be in this form only, that the set of all X such that X equal to B, X greater than equal to 0. And we'll show that it has only finitely many vertices. Okay, that's another thing. What is a polytope? To remind you, it is the convex hull of a non-empty finite set. Okay, so you take finitely many points, non-empty. Some 5, 10, not empty set. Okay, some set, some finite set, and take the convex solve. What you get is a polytope. A polyhedron is the intersection of finitely many closed half spaces. Okay, a set is bounded below a set subset of Rn. A subset of Rn is bounded below if, what is that we are saying? Now, if there exists a point, it is bounded below if there exists a point A such that A is less than equal to x for all x in S, and this less than equal to is coordinate wise. Point, like this is point wise. Okay, so the a of I means ith coordinate. A of I is less than equal to xi. Sometimes I also write ith coordinate by a subscript I, but it should be clear from the context. Polytopes and polyhedrons are closed convex sets that we already know. A polytope is always bounded. That is also true. I mean, you want to just find there are finitely many points now, so just find the distances from the origin, whatever it is, and take the maximum distance, maximum because there are only finitely many points, and then take a closed ball around origin, so that closed ball will contain all of them. Okay. And 5.17, the vertices of the convex hull of S, they are from they are from the set S. Okay, vertices of convex hull of S are elements of S only, that we have already proved. Okay, remember our favorite set. Our favorite set was like this part in R2. It is like 1 unit, E1, E2. So I have already said how this is a polytope, and this is convex hull of 4 points, and it can be also seen as a polyhedron because it is intersection of 4 closed half spaces. Okay, that is like x1 less than equal to 1, x1 greater than equal to 0, that kind of a thing. Okay, remember that one. And in general, if you are looking at a solid hypercube, what is a solid hypercube? Now, it's just a product of some closed interval. This one is product of 2 intervals like 0, 1, comma 0, 1 square. This one is that only. I mean, so solid hypercube would be like in n dimension you have to take, I mean, some intervals, n many intervals and non-trivial intervals. Okay. Okay. And the set, our set of feasible solutions. So what is this? Now this is actually a polyhedron. What is this? Now this is the set of all non-negative solutions of a system of linear equations. This is a system of linear equation. If you take A is an m by n matrix, if A is an m by n matrix, then Ax equal to B, this system consists of m number of linear equations. Therefore, it consists of 2m number of inequations. Each linear equation 2x plus 3y plus 5z equal to 1, that can be written as the same thing, 2x plus 3y plus 5z less than equal to 1 and greater than equal to 1. So each equation can be converted to 2 inequations, and this part, since I am saying x is greater than equal to 0, that will give you n many inequalities. So that is 2m plus n number of closed half spaces. So that's why it is a polyhedron. This set is a polyhedron. This example is trivial. I mean, you just read it. There is nothing over here. It's just given so in order to confirm your understanding. Okay. Now the question, we have this question. Suppose that someone has given us a set of inequations in R9. 9 I have taken, I mean, it's a big number. I mean, so that it's not very small. I mean, a set of inequations, how many inequations? I don't know, 50, 60 inequations in R9 or R90, wherever it is. So some inequations has been given. Okay. So, and the fellow also gives a point in the polyhedron described by those inequalities. Inequalities means less than equal to inequalities. Okay, those kind of inequalities. I mean, the inequations are given. So that fellow gives a point. If I really want to check whether that point belongs to that polyhedron or not, what do I do? Now I take that point and substitute in each inequality and see whether it is satisfying or not. Okay, fine. I don't know. I mean, that will do. No problem. So that is how I verify. But if the person says that the point given is a vertex of that polyhedron, how do I check? How do I know whether that actually is a vertex or not? Okay. So then we'll have a result below that gives a criteria how to test one particular point is a vertex or not. So before that, I will give you some notation over here. Okay. So first of all, here I am using a notation, this one. So given a matrix A, I, colon, this means ith row. Okay. And A subscript colon I means ith column. Okay, this is a notation I will be using again and again and again. Okay, I may use even without, I mean, believing that, I mean, without knowing that, I mean, I have used. So let me tell it at this place. Now suppose that I have, so look at this one. Here I have given one A and a B. Okay, and I am looking at the set of inequalities AZ or AX less than equal to B. AX less than equal to B means what? Now the first one will mean X1 minus X3 is less than equal to 1. What is the second one? That is this one. This one will mean 2x1 plus 3x2 plus x3 is less than equal to 6. So the other two also you can write. So I am looking at a set of 4 equations in 3 variables. Okay, that's what. So it is AX less than equal to B. And then the person gives, as I said, the person gives this as a point. Now whether this point is satisfying these equations, now you put 1, 1, 1. So you see 1 plus minus 1, that is 0. It is strictly less than 1, satisfies this one. Then 2 plus 3 plus 1. Okay, it satisfies the equality of this one. This one, the second one satisfies the equality, less than. Nevertheless, less than equal to is satisfied, but it satisfies the equality. Now, if it satisfies the equality, I note it here at this place. And then you substitute this one, minus 1, 1, 1. So that total is equal to 0. Strictly less than. This is strictly less than 1. So I don't note it. 3 to 1. That like 3 times 1, 2 times 1, and 1 time 1 added to it is equality over here. So I note it here. So by A subscript Z, what I am doing now, I am bringing all those rows that satisfy the equality in AZ when I substitute X equal to Z, AZ less than equal to B. So you just look at AZ less than equal to B. Whatever equality, whatever rows are satisfying the equality, you bring them here, and that will have the notation A subscript Z. Okay. And what is B subscript Z? Now it is the corresponding subvector of B corresponding to these rows. Okay. And what is AZ bar? Now AZ bar is the remaining rows of AZ, and BZ bar, now the remaining entries. of Bz. Okay, so these are the notation. So here is the test for the vertex of a polyhedron. Now what does it say? It says, suppose that you are looking at a set given in this format. What is the, this is the set of all x. This is P, set of all x given in this format, x less than equal to b. Okay, then it says a point z in P is a vertex if and only if this matrix Az has rank n. What is this n? Now this is this n, Rnn. Okay, has rank n. Now what do you do? Now look, I will just tell something very I mean this thing. Suppose that in R2 only, in R2, huh? So suppose that in R2 you are looking at one line and you are looking at another line. So this would look like something like a1x plus a2y less than equal to b1. So that will be this side, and then a2x plus b1x, b to I have used, so let me write c1x plus c2y less than equal to d1. That is for this side. Okay, this is the intersection. This is the first line, L1. This is the second line, L2, and we are looking at this side. We are only looking at this side. Okay, these are the half spaces. Now assume that I have a point over here, Z, that is not on L1, not on L2, but inside. So what do you do? In that case, notice that there is a particular distance of Z from L1, positive. There is a particular distance of Z from L2, positive. Take the smaller of the distance and take a delta smaller than even that. Then in that case, you can find a ball around Z which is completely inside this set of points. So here, in a similar way, suppose first that Az is empty. Suppose Z belongs to P, given is a vertex. Assume that it is a vertex given. What am I going to tell? Now I am going to tell that Az will have rank n. That's what I want to show. So first I am going to show that Az is a non-trivial matrix. It is not empty. Now why? Now see, look, Az, if it is non-empty, I am going to say it is non-empty. So if Az is equal to empty, what does it mean? Now it means that it is not on any of these hyperplanes, the defining hyperplanes. So in that case, you take the distance of this point Z from each of these hyperplanes, and there are finitely many, and take the smallest distance and a delta which is smaller. In that case, this Z will be in the interior. So in that case, Z belongs to the interior of P. Okay, and if Z belongs to the interior of P, then definitely it is not a vertex. Z is not a vertex. So that will give you a contradiction. Okay. Okay, fine. So I have justified that Az has to be a non-empty matrix. Okay, it's a non-trivial matrix. Fine. Now, what if Az equal to, so Az, let me write Az. Az is this, some kind of a matrix, and somehow the rank is less than n. Okay, some rows are there, so AZ has some rows, but somehow the rank is less than n. Now, okay, what do I mean by rank less than n? Now, rank less than n means this means what? Now, this means there is a non-zero W such that AZW equal to 0. And that the null space, I mean, you will get a non-trivial vector in the null space. That's fine. Okay. Acha. Fine. Now, remember that. What does that mean? That means if I take AZ and multiply Z plus alpha times W, what do I get? Now look, AZ times Z, remember AZ was the part that satisfies the equality, those equations. So this will be BZ only, because AZ times W is 0. So this will be BZ. Okay, no problem. And what about AZ complement times Z? Now AZ complement times Z was strictly less than BZ complement, right? And there I can do this same argument to say that, so by continuity you can also say, by viewing them as viewing each of the rows in AZ complement defining a continuous function, you can say by continuity there exists a delta greater than 0 such that, or if you really want to get the delta, this is how you get the delta. For each of the hyperplanes that are described over here, they do not contain Z. Okay, so find the distance of Z to those hyperplanes. I have already said how to find that distance. Okay, there was one example and you know from +2 that's what I didn't say. The distance, how to find that distance. Okay, such that X belonging to B delta Z will imply AZ bar X is strictly less than BZ bar by continuity. In particular, okay, if I take 2 points, which 2 points I will take? Now let me take Z plus delta by 2 W by W norm. Well, W by W norm is a unit vector. I multiplied by delta by 2, so Z plus delta by 2. So Z to this point, the distance is delta by 2, and therefore it will be inside this B delta Z, and Z minus delta by 2 W by W norm, they will be inside this. Okay, inside this B delta Z. So both of them will satisfy AZ bar. This will be strictly less than BZ bar. And what about AZ time that? Now AZ time that I have already said, why only delta by 2 for any alpha? Okay. I have already said that this is equal to BZ. This is where we have said. This is where. So therefore, what you are seeing now, you have got these 2 points. They will satisfy A times. I mean, so this basically means these 2 points, Z plus delta by 2 W by W norm, Z minus delta by 2 W by W norm, they will belong to P, this set P, and therefore Z cannot be a vertex because Z is the midpoint of these 2. Okay, and so the only option available is that AZ has to have rank n. Okay, now go for the converse. Converse is what? Now suppose that I have a point Z of P. I don't know whether it is a vertex, but I know that AZ, I found out AZ, and AZ has rank n, A subscript Z, that has rank n. I want to claim that this is a vertex. Well, suppose it is not. So this is the converse I am talking. Let me write not here. Converse. Now suppose rank A subscript Z is equal to n, and assume that, by the way of contradiction, assume Z is not a vertex. Z is given to be a point, not a vertex. So what does that mean? Now this means there exists u v in P, u not equal to v, and a lambda in 0, 1, such that Z equal to lambda u plus 1 minus lambda b. That is what it means. Okay, fine. Now what is AZ times Z? Sorry, what is AZ times Z? Now AZ times Z is BZ only. Because AZ, A subscript Z is defined like that only. These are the this thing, and it is rank n, so matrix is non-trivial. Okay, no problem. That is BZ only. But this is also equal to AZ times lambda u plus AZ times 1 minus lambda v. Now what is AZ times u? Now what is u? Now u is a point. Now if u is a point, normally what I know is that ax is less than equal to b. So what I know that this is less than equal to lambda times bz plus 1 minus lambda times bz, because AZU will be less than equal to bz only. And similarly, but this is equal to bz. So you started with bz here and you ended at bz. So that must be the case that AZU equal to bz and AZV is equal to bz. Because if anywhere you have a strict inequality, you cannot have the end equalities. Okay, so it basically means AZ. So this implies AZU equal to BZ equal to AZV. Oh, acha. No, in that case, AZ times U minus V is equal to 0. But then you said U is not equal to V. And therefore, U minus V is a non-zero vector. But in that, how can that happen? AZ has rank n. Na? If AZ has rank n, you cannot have a non-trivial vector in the null space, right? So there you get the contradiction. So this is the contradiction you get. So that was the proof. Okay, proof is written over here. You can read it. Now there is a small remark with a very similar kind of a thing. Now suppose that you are looking at a matrix. You have a big matrix A, and suppose that you are looking at a submatrix of this, okay, and this is n by n submatrix. Okay, call this something a cap or something, no problem. Call this a cap. This part is a cap, n by n submatrix you are looking. What I am thinking whether I can have two distinct vertices. Okay. Say suppose I have a vertex Z and I have a vertex W, two distinct vertices, such that this is AZ and AW will be a super matrix. I mean, it will be a bigger than a matrix that contains more this thing, maybe more number of rows. Okay, can this happen? Well, this cannot happen. Why? Now, because if this is AZ, so then I know that AZZ is equal to BZ, and AW is containing AZ, so it will follow that AW is what? Now that is the submatrix that corresponded to equality. You understand? So therefore, AZ times W also will be equal to BZ. In fact, it says the for the bigger matrix, AW times W is BW, but then AZ is a submatrix, so this will also satisfy equality, and therefore it will say AZ times Z minus W is equal to 0. And that is not going to happen because AZ has rank n. Okay, so this I am assuming AZ has, this is a vertex. Okay, since this is a vertex, okay, this I am saying AZ, forget the cap. Okay, so it basically means if you have two distinct vertices, then Z and W, then one submatrix AZ and the submatrix AW, one cannot contain the other. This is not going to happen. Okay, so that gives us the idea of how to generate the vertices of a polyhedron. How do you do that? Now do one thing. Suppose I have given you given you a matrix A, I have given B, and I have said, okay, find out the polyhedrons. So this is, for example, I have given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I have given 6 polyhedron. So I will have A 6 by 3. Okay, in 3 variables. Okay. How many polyhedrons that can have? Now, to do that, what you do simply, you just find a submatrix, 3 by 3 submatrix. So columns are already 3. So you just take 3 rows such that that submatrix has full rank 3. Okay. So once you do that, so for example, you might have taken this one, and this one. That submatrix will be like 1, 1, 0. This is x plus y, and that one is 0, 1, 1, and this one is what? Now this one is 1, 0, 1 xz. Okay. So this is non-singular. This part is non-singular. So this has rank 3. Now as soon as you find that submatrix, the corresponding BZ, the corresponding B is what? Now this is equal to 2, 4, 3. So what you do, you solve this. Find the point that satisfies this. Okay, find the point. How do you find now? Like this is invertible, so multiply this by inverse. So Z equal to, you find a solution. Z is equal to B inverse BB. This is the corresponding, capital B is this matrix. Okay, so find that and then see whether that point satisfies the whole equation. If it satisfies the whole equation, then you understand that must be a vertex. Why? Now definitely these 3 satisfy the equality. There may be some more, and that rank is 3. Therefore it is a vertex. So, and if it doesn't, so it is not a vertex. So this is how you can list down all the vertices. For this example, you try to find out, you can write a simple program in MATLAB or something to see whether this is, I mean, see that you get this. Okay. So as a corollary, what do you get? You get a non-empty polyhedron has finitely many vertices. Well, if it has m many rows, at best how many vertices? Na m choose n. That's it. It cannot have more than that. It can have no vertices at all. A non-empty polyhedron. So for example, you just have only one half space. Just one half space. Doesn't have a vertex. Okay, non-empty polyhedron. Okay, so that's how it is. At most m choose n, you can have that one. So here are some exercises. And now I will talk about bounded polyhedrons and bounded, and polytopes. Polytopes are already bounded. Okay. The first thing that you remember the previous statement we made, the fact that we said if you have a non-empty compact convex set, then it has a vertex. That's what we said. We proved by induction. But here what is given? A non-empty closed convex and bounded below. It is not compact, but it is bounded below. Okay, so then it has a vertex. That's what it is saying. Okay. So what is the idea? Now the idea over here is simple. What you do, you first go to a point somewhere. Okay, let me say somewhere here. Let me draw this one so that you can see it by an example. Let me draw. So I'm drawing this cube. Okay. What I have drawn is bounded. Okay. But the computer doesn't know. The algorithm that I am going to give, algorithm doesn't know. What it says, now it says, look, and what is it? Now bounded below, I am saying bounded below by whatever. I mean, bounded below by A. This set is bounded below by some point A. No problem. Now it says pick any point. Let me pick the center of the cube. Then what it says? Now pass a line. You pick any direction. So first point you have picked is something like y1. Fine. Then choose any direction with a negative integer. Okay, with a negative entry. Okay, fine. You can choose. I choose like something like in dimension 3. So I choose something like 1 0 minus 1. My choice. You just have to choose something with a negative entry. And look at the line passing through that. So in that direction, y1 and line passing through this, okay, like or 1 2 minus 1 whatever, some line. So you will get a line, something passing through that. Okay, somewhere it will cross. Right now in my picture it is crossing on both sides. I don't know whether it will cross in the abstract case. Nah, it will cross at least once. Why? Now look, there is a negative entry here. So if you allow alpha to be indefinitely large, then what will happen is this set will not become bounded below. So that will because I have the whole set to be bounded below by A, whatever are the entries of A, these entries of this y1 plus this cannot go down that. But since I have a negative entry, so I cannot make alpha indefinitely large. So in one direction, it is going to touch the boundary. It is going to cross the boundary. And therefore, you reach a boundary point and you call that y2. Now you reach a boundary point, y2. Okay. Remember the technique. All I have to do is find a direction with a negative entry. Then I know how to get to the next boundary point. So I have found y2 in what? In del S. Okay. Now, because you have found a y2 in del S, what do you do now? You consider supporting hyperplane and look at H intersection S. Now you look at this H intersection S. This is what? Now this itself is a convex set, okay, with I mean, look at the structure is inside Rn minus 1, but forget it. Now I am targeting this H only. Now from this H, what do you do? Now you pick a D, a new D. So earlier direction was 1, 0, minus 1 or whatever, but now I have to find a D, a direction, so that I travel in the hyperplane H, not in arbitrary. I have to find a direction so that I travel in the hyperplane H. For that, what do you do? Now you pick a point X from H and you consider X minus Y2. This X is not equal to Y2. Huh? Then you consider X minus Y2 or Y2 minus X. That will be a direction which will allow you to travel in H, and choose one of them will have a negative entry. Now as soon as you have got that, then you consider, so call that as your D2, then you consider Y2 plus alpha times D2, and you reach next boundary point Y3, and you keep on going. After repeating sometimes, you will go to Yn, and Yn at that time actually you will get your H intersection S. That will be a singleton point, and therefore that is a vertex of what? Now that is a vertex of that I mean every time you are in reduced dimension, so it is a vertex of that convex set right now, which is I mean right there. But then it is also a vertex of the previous convex set, because it was in the supporting hyperplane, and therefore a previous convex set and a previous convex set, and therefore it will be a vertex of the original convex set. So, and an example given over here, you see that. Okay. So for example, with this cube kind of a structure, with this, or this one is better, the square kind of a structure. Pick this one, take any line passing through this, reach to a boundary point. Now consider the hyperplane at this boundary point. So you are looking at this line only. Okay. Now you move from this point along this hyperplane in any direction. Okay. So that direction according to this, so you will be move in one direction, that is negative, and then you will reach another point. So that is your last point, and this is the vertex. So that is what it was doing. Yeah. So okay, since I have more time, let me tell what exactly I have. Here, let me explain this one a little more in detail. So what is this? I am looking at the convex hull of E1, E2, E3. E1, E2, E3 in R3. So it is the triangular plate. Okay. And then the other one I am just drawing over here, it is coming straight up. Okay, some E1, E2, E3. Imagine your way by drawing on the tabletop like R2 and then take up E1, E2, E3. That you would be looking at a triangular plate. Okay, closed triangular plate. Now pick the point 0.1, 0.2, 0.7. That is somewhere inside the triangle, in the interior of the triangle. This is in the interior of the triangle. Okay, fine. And here I was allowed to pick any direction with just a negative number. Okay, so I have picked this. And then it said, you try to move along this direction as much as possible. Am I able to move along this direction even a little bit? The answer is no, because I move a little bit, the sum, I will be out of that triangle. Okay, the sum of the coordinates will not be equal to 1. The triangle is like, this is the like, so it will be outside the set. So therefore what happens? Now I moved only 0 unit. So therefore next I have got, the same point only, 0.1, 0.2, 0.7. So that is my boundary point. So actually from the beginning it was the boundary point. Nevertheless, no problem. I'm behaving like a computer, the way computer will go. Okay, fine. I reached there. Now I have reached a boundary point. Now then I have to take a supporting hyperplane. Now the supporting hyperplane will be the plane itself, x plus y plus z equal to 1, the plane that contains that triangle itself. Now fine. Now I have to move in a direction on that triangle. Now we are supposed to move. So I am now looking at traveling inside this hyperplane. And how do I get a direction? I said you pick any point on this hyperplane, but it should be different from this point y1. So for example, I have picked something of my choice, 0.3, 0.1, 0.6. This point is different from y1. Is this on the hyperplane? X plus y plus z equal to 1. That is on the hyperplane. Then what do? Now I take the difference, x minus y1. Okay, I have x minus y1 is 0.2 minus 0.1 minus 0.1. It has a negative entry? It has a negative entry. If it has all positive entries, at least one entry will be non-zero, because x is different from y1. So then I would have looked at y1 minus x. That will be also a direction. No problem. So here I have a direction which has some negative entry. So this will allow me to move inside h1. So what am I supposed to do? Now I am supposed to look at y1. If you call this d1, this is d1, then I am supposed to look at y1 plus alpha d1. This is what. And I will take alpha as much as possible. Now, okay, y1 is equal to what? Now y1 is 0.1, 0.2, 0.7, and d1 is 0.2 minus 0.1 minus 0.7. The maximum extent alpha can be 2, right? You cannot make it bigger than 2, otherwise it will have 0 entries. Here I have this is bounded below by 0, 0, 0. So the maximum that I can take in this set is 2. So therefore, the moment I take alpha equal to 2, I go to the point, this one, 0.5, 0, 0.5. That is my next boundary point. Okay. Okay. So notice where is it? Now, this one is actually on the line joining U1 and E3. Okay. Now you have to take a supporting hyperplane to S1. S1 right now was S1 was H intersection S. That was S1. Where is S1? Why did I say S1? Here S1. S1 is the H intersection. This is S, but this is S1. This is S1 is that the hyperplane intersection S is somehow happen to be the same, but doesn't matter. So inside that S1. Now, if I am looking at the triangle at a plane structure and a boundary, this point 0.5, 0.5, a hyperplane, supporting hyperplane will be the line. Okay, that will be the line. So here what I am going to do. So y2 is this. Now you want to find you will find a supporting hyperplane, so that is fine. A direction, now choose a point from the next supporting hyperplane. Okay, the supporting hyperplane is nothing but the line given by E1 and E3. So for example, I choose X to be this 0.30, 0.7. That is in the line joining E1 and E3. Okay, and it is different from this. Take the difference. Difference is this direction, has a negative entry. So then I am trying to move y2 plus alpha times d2 with alpha as much positive as possible. Well, if we want to do that, what you will get is y3 equal to 0, 0, 1. And you have reached the vertex. That's what it says. Okay. Yeah. So that is where I will stop. Any questions? Are you listening or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no questions? Okay, in that case, that ends it. You can leave now.